Hi, my name is Quentin.
And I'm Julian.
This is an episode of the 4.5 Club. So today we're with the man, the myth, the legend, Kevin Harris. Can you please introduce yourself?
Legend. He's not gonna answer, you know. You're talking to the wrong guy.
My name is Kevin Harris.
It's just you. So welcome back to the 4.5 Club. It's Julian, we're in Vancouver, and wait, here we are with the real Kevin Harris.
He's not a skeleton.
What? I feel like a skeleton. You're a skeleton, aren't you a skeleton? I like how you did the mouth moves, because it kind of looks like me when I'm talking, right? It's all good.
So, can you please introduce yourself? Like, your age?
I'm old.
Okay, fair enough.
No, yeah. Kevin Harris, I started skateboarding in 1975, kind of the big first boom in Canada. It happened in 75. Stopped everything I was doing, everything on the planet, just wanted to focus on skateboarding, and I'm 61 years now and still love it like the first day I seen it.
That's dope. So how did you get started into skateboarding?
Yeah, skateboarding did not exist really in Canada until like 1975. It started a little bit before in California, like 73, 74, and then the birth of the urethane wheel. So when it came up here, all of a sudden there was no, of course, skateboard shops, but it hit all the sporting goods shops. And it was really like all my friends who did baseball and hockey and stuff, within a week everybody had a skateboard. So it was introduced to it at a Dairy Queen demo, and they brought up some of the best skateboarders in the world at that point from California, which I didn't know their names until later, learning about Doug Saladino, Steve Cathay. Doug Saladino invented the pineapple flip.
Yeah, Doug Pineapple Saladino, that was his nickname.
Yeah, which turned into the kick flip.
No
right?
way, that's...
Yeah, yes, and then it turned into the ollie kickflip. So when we first started skating, when you did a kickflip, when the board flipped upside down and back on your feet, it was called the pineapple flip. That was an old school way, hooking your foot over, which then the pineapple flip went away and it kickflip, and then the ollie came in, and then the ollie kickflip. So that's kind of the history. But yeah, once I got into it, it was game changing. It was, everything was just focusing on skateboarding. My parents were fantastic. We had a vert ramp in our backyard. I was a vert skater before I was a freestyle skater, and actually there's a photo of me with Tony Hawk's doing a McTwist, and I'm underneath him. But in Vancouver, it was very hard to do vert skating in the winter because we had so much rain. So I started focusing more on freestyle. So I was doing both at the time, freestyle and that was before street skating even existed. So I was competing in vert, and then eventually into the late 70s, 80s, just concentrated more on freestyle.
That's crazy. I had no clue you were a vert skater.
Yeah.
Damn.
I had no
I mean, that was before. I mean, it was still at the really beginning stage of vert. So we had one of the very few vert ramps in all Canada, my mom and dad's backyard. So 10 foot of vert. And that was before all the big airs were starting to come in. So it was all the lip tricks like rock and rolls and 50-50s and all that. Airs were just starting to come in like 78-ish. And then, like I said, then I spent way more time freestyling because I could do it anywhere. I could do it indoors on a flat surface anywhere I wanted to do it. So
That's amazing. So if you had to choose one, which one, well, let's just say that the winters were like the summer, or like California.
yeah.
Would you have stuck with vert skating, or do you think you would have gone with freestyle too?
That's a great question. I've been asked that before. So if I lived in Southern California where you could skate that kind of stuff all the time, as soon as it started getting crazy, where the big airs and stuff were starting to come in, and my brain was like, that looks crazy. And I started focusing more. So it's a great question, but I think if it was Southern California, I still would have been a freestyler.
Okay.
Right, but when just so you know, back then when we were skating, you would skate vert for a while and then stop that and get tired of that and go to do some freestyle, then go do some high jump and go do some long jump, and then when street came in, I got into street skating too. But again, I started focusing my attention on that, and I knew at a certain point in my life, when I got sponsored by Powell and I was like the pro freestyler, that I couldn't do anything else, if that makes sense. I just had to concentrate just on that. Even though I had the tendency to do this other stuff, I just wanted to make sure that I did my best possible as a freestyler.
That's really cool.
So, what was your first sponsor?
That's a great question. I mean, back then too, you're 14 years old and somebody gives you a free T-shirt. It's like, I'm sponsored. Oh my god! So I rode for like a couple local shops first, and then we had a pro skater come up here, Frank Blood, who rode for GNS back in the pretty big name in the late 70s, and he put me on GNS. And so I rode for Gordon Smith, and then crazy story is 1982 skateboarding was dead. So huge in the 70s, like huge. And then 1980, this completely dropped off. So I was starting to travel to California as an amateur and doing fairly good in the contest down there. So I'll never forget this day. So 1982 comes along, skateboarding is dead. But I go to Delmore, California, and I enter a contest. It was still kind of underground. There was no magazines at that point. Thrasher did not exist, or just started to exist as a newsprint magazine. There was nothing going on with skating. And I was in Sponsored Am riding for GNS. And there was pros. There was my idols. Oh my God, Rodney Mullen, Per Willender, and all these guys, right? And what they did when I got down there surprised me. Oh, you're turning pro today. What do you mean I'm turning pro today? There's not enough sponsored AMs and there's not enough pros who've got to join them together to make it like 15 people in the event. So all of a sudden I was stressing, going, oh, kidding me. I got to go up against Rodney Mullen and all of these guys, right? So and anyway, what happened was Rodney Mullen was first, Per Willender was number 2, and I was number 3. And I was just like,
wow.
I went down from California into California, very first pro contest, and I got 3rd. And I'm walking out of the parking lot, and I idolize, of course, all the Bones Brigade guys, Steve Caballero, Tony Hawk, and Stacy Peralta is driving his Volvo. And he looks, he rolls down his window, and that's God to me, right? Oh my God, Stacy Peralta. Hey, he goes, Kevin, come over here. And he goes, you ripped today. And I was like, thanks a lot, Stacy. And he goes, you want to ride for the Bones Brigade? And I was like, yeah. So I'll never forget that day. It was pretty cool when that happened.
Wow. So you had a pro board on GNS, or?
No, it's just Sponsored AM. So back then too, very interesting, coming from the freestyle background, is GNS really didn't make a freestyle board, but I was happy to have GNS as a sponsor. So we'd get the boards up into Canada, take a jigsaw and cut them out to a freestyle shape. And that was really the only way to, ride something that you could riding for GNS, because they didn't really produce a shape for a freestyle board. And it wasn't until I got in Powell that I started riding Rodney's board right away.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, there's some, like, skateboarding history has a lot of amazing kind of little things like that just people don't realize. Like even up in Canada, when skateboarding really dropped off in 1980, 81, it was hard to get a skateboard. So even though you wanted to still do it, where do you get the next thing? So we had Skull Skates here, which were super lucky. They had a retail store that we were able to go get stuff. But trying to find freestyle stuff back then was like, that was difficult.
What's your favorite trick?
So there was my go-to tricks, and I'm sure you got those too. Like when you do coconut wheelies, is that something that you just love to do? Mm-hmm. Right? So I had the same type of things. Like I had tricks that in a run, in a contest, I was worried about making them, like 540 shovels and stuff, and I'd be nervous about pulling those off. My go-to trick was just doing 360s, because I figured that out so good. And when you're one of the few people in the world that can do 100, you really got it figured out at that point. And so at any time I could, just as long as the surface was flat enough, I could just bust out 360s at any time. And then, I think my hardest trick, and it was Mark Gonzalez phoned me up one time because he was dying to know how to do this trick. And I've shown it a couple times. It's in the band in this video, and it's my hardest trick I've ever done. And I did it once in a competition, but it was always, if you're a little bit nervous, I was going to screw it up every time. Was kickflip to 1 foot 360. So you do kickflip, you have to land with that with the wheels up and then start to spin. So I think it's in band this in the video, but anyway, that's probably my hardest trick. But my biggest fear bringing it into a contest, because a little bit of nervousness, you can screw up that trick so easy.
That's like me with that roll up.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's the same thing. You want to show it, but you know that a little bit of nervousness is, you're not going to be able to pull it the way you want to pull it. Where a lot of my other tricks, like double M80s, all that kind of stuff, were just so go-to tricks that I could do at any time. 10 out of 10 I could land those tricks. But there were some tricks I'd put in my run that I had to do, but I knew it was sketchy to do it, that I could not make it. I'll give you an example. Like the worst contest I ever competed in, points-wise, I always got like top 5, and Expo 86, which is probably the biggest contest for the time. It was Expo 86, happened in Vancouver. It was the world's contest. So much so much pressure, because it was my local thing. I was riding for Powell at the time in 1986, and I missed 2 tricks, and they were my hardest tricks. Missed the 540 shove it, and another one, and it put me in 7th place. And that was the worst contest placing I ever did in my hometown. So that was frustrating.
So, do you have like a trick that you don't like to do? A trick that doesn't appeal to you?
Not really, but there's tricks that if I don't pull it right, I hate it. If that makes sense. Like you've seen Austin and stuff. They do the flamingo.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like my trick that I invented. And if I didn't nail that right off the top, it doesn't look right. It's one of those tricks that if you don't get it to the flow right away. So I was always making sure in a contest that I practiced that over and over in the area that I want to do it, because it has to do with everything with the surface, right? So if you got a nice slippery surface, but this is too grippy on this side, you want to make sure you do it over and over here before you run, because that's where it flows the best. But if you bring it over here and it's a different surface, you don't want that trick to go like this. You want it to just go, float right out.
Yeah, damn. So you invented that trick?
Yeah.
Did you invent the kickflip 1 foot 360
Yeah.
too?
Few tricks were kind of like my kind of signature move that nobody else did that I invented. The flamingo was probably, I guess, the one that's still talked about mostly now.
That's crazy.
So that's my favorite trick. I love that trick.
So, exactly how many tricks have you invented?
And I'm gonna say the other one that I invented in the band in this video is kickflip front side M80 to 1 foot. So that was never been done. So I give 4, I guess. 4 that are like people recognize as like that's Kevin's kind of signature move. And another one we had to call it Canadian name because it was so different. It was called the Anne Murray Shuffle, and Anne Murray was a big famous singer for Canada. So somebody goes, you should call it the Anne Murray Shuffle. So that was called. That's in one of the old videos too. So maybe 4 tricks, 5 tricks.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's fun.
So I heard you broke a world record. You mind talking about that?
Sure, I did that, yeah. So it's funny because there's a lot of the industry does not know this, and it's a great question because I'll tell you why the industry doesn't know this. Is in the 70s, before the ollie was invented, okay? So what determined how good of a skateboarder you were was how many 360s you could actually do. So the more 360 you could do determined how better a skater. Unlike you guys now, it's basically how big you can go, how high you can ollie and all that kind of stuff.
Well,
the ollie was not invented, right? So it didn't exist. So if you could do 10 360s, you're kind of one of the best in the city. And if you do 20, 30, you're one of the best in the country. And then if you do over 100, you're one of the best in the world. So at that time, in the 70s, people did one board 360s on 1 foot, 1 foot nose, front side, back side. And then another trick that came up was the 2 board 360s. And I fell in love with that trick right away because it was one of my idols out of California named Steve Cathey that broke a world's record. And he'd done, the magazines were covering it, he'd done like 180 Guinness Book of World Records. Again, you guys, before internet, before you could push the send button, how do you do that? I was breaking that record up here in my garage, small little garage, 1-car garage with 4 people watching. And they were just like, holy shit, you beat the guy to California, you're doing like 200 and
That's
220.
crazy.
And then this like, okay, but how do you get that? Like you right now could just push the send button and it just goes around the world. Back then it's like, how do I get beating the California guy up into Canada? So it's lucky enough to, at a major world contest here, or Canadian contest, I was asked to go out there and do it. But it was at a contest, so it's kind of like we seen yesterday, you got kind of one shot at it. You're not gonna get that guy to come out there to try to break a Guinness World Records and keep trying that trick. I had one shot. So I got super nervous. I'm like 18 years old, or 16 years old, or what the heck I was. So 1979, so I go out there and I start doing it. The announcer comes, the music gets cranked, all the people in the crowd, kind of like yesterday, that whole hype's going on.
Yeah.
And I get up there and I'm like 220, 230, 240, so I beat the world's record. And this is fast, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? But at 300, I can't even explain how, that's like pumping a swing as hard as you can for like 5 minutes. It's like, it takes a lot of energy. It'd be like you just blasting, and no one's stopping you, just keep going. So at 300 in my brain, I was done. I was like, I broke the world's record, I'm done. So the announcer goes, hey, how many you want to see this guy do? He just broke the Guinness Book of World Record. He's at 320. And everybody starts stomping their feet and clapping, going 1,000. So in my brain, I was like, impossible. There's no way I can keep spinning for that many. And I ended up at 1,032. And why I tell you the industry doesn't know that, because in 1980, and when skating started to change in the development of the ollie, it was totally uncool to do 360s. right?
Really?
Totally uncool, especially two boards. So even though I wanted to end all my runs with two boards, it would have been looked upon as like, what's that guy doing? I think it would have actually dragged my points down because it wasn't something that was done. Because Rodney Mullen was coming onto the scene and everything was ollie and rail tricks and 50-50 tricks and stuff. And here's this Kevin guy kind of doing this 360 thing. And what do you mean he's got two boards, right? So it was pushed aside. And now there's a video that came out last week of showcasing that two board 360 thing that he did, and it went on YouTube like last week. It'll be very interesting because I've already heard it. Like, Kevin, give me a break. You didn't do 1,032. Like, it's kind of one of those things that's kind of like, there's no way you can spin around 1,032 times.
Yeah, because it doesn't seem
It
almost seems impossible. It doesn't seem real.
Actually, yesterday I had people coming up to me and go, seriously? Wasn't it 132? And I was like, no, it's 1,032. People just don't grasp it, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it was something that was just kind of put away, like it's not done anymore. But the Japanese, all the freestyles now, everybody's starting to do it again, So
yeah, it's coming back.
It's coming back, right? So I'm gonna probably go within months say I want somebody to beat that, and I'm gonna put up some prize money for somebody to try to take that on and beat it, right? I mean, that's like this. So you go that I don't think anybody's even ever come close. Like nobody's ever sent me anything. I did 60. I did 70. I haven't seen anybody even do over 50. So I still look back at that and go, like, how did that work? But again, it went from cool to completely off the planet. Like nobody would care. Nobody would think anything of it. But I think you're right. It's coming. That whole thing's making a comeback, right?
So, do you think anyone's gonna beat your record?
I hope so, but it was like you know it. You guys yesterday. As soon as you get the crowd behind, it's a different ball game, right? It's your adrenaline goes and you skate better than you did with nobody watching. I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but I definitely did that. So if somebody would tell me before that event that, hey, Kev, go try 1,000, I just say, yeah, right. But when you get out there and you're a teenager and your adrenaline's flowing and the crowd gets behind you, you push yourself. And I still to this day, I don't know how. If I would have tried it the next day or a week later without the crowd, there's no way. Like you need the crowd to energize you, and that, to me that's always like a big part of skateboarding. That guy's great, but put him in front of a crowd and get the crowd behind him, it's a different ballgame.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So is there like an injury that
So
scares you or something?
I've had injuries, of course, from skateboarding, but I think one of the biggest ones that really just like took a lot out of me, mentally, emotionally, physically, was Andy Anderson and I did a lot of shows together, and we were doing a demo, and lots of people watching, and I'm there, and I got on the mic, and just started the demo. We usually do like 4 a day, so it was like the first demo of the day, and I was rolling along super, super slow, like way slower than even walking speed, and I hit a little piece of like straw or hay, and it was indoors on polished cement, and my foot, the board stopped, my Achilles snapped. And I could hear it, the crowd heard it snap, but it doesn't hurt. Like an injury like that does not hurt, but it's game changing because even when it heals, you don't, and you guys know it as skaters, you don't have that instant click anymore. It's like somebody's taking something away from you. So your brain's going, your board should react, and it's not reacting. So that took a lot of time to get over. Then I friggin' my hip surgery. So call it 3 years of just not wanting. I wanted to skate, but not being able to skate. Had hip surgery, and now I'm skating again. So it's been great to get back on a board. So
that's cool. So what's your all-time moment? Because I know you've won a bunch of contests. You've had your pro board.
Yeah.
You beat the world record. What was your favorite moment out of all of them?
Yeah. Favorite moment probably of all time was when Rodney Mullen didn't show up to a contest. So Venice Beach, California, I can't remember why he wasn't there, but he wasn't there, and I won Venice. And I say this to this day, the only reason I won, of course, because Rodney wasn't there. Because when I went to a contest, and I said this lots of times in the 80s when I was competing, getting second to Rodney was like getting first, right? So I knew no one could beat the guy, he was untouchable, but to get next to that guy in the number 2 spot was my goal. But I kind of felt guilty too because I'm in Venice, Rodney's not here, I win, so you get all the attention to be first place. But it's like kind of not fair, I shouldn't have won because if Rodney was here, I wouldn't have won. Yeah. Rodney, this to me, side note, is the my favorite skateboarder ever. I think he's changed skateboarding than anybody else in history. And I just look up to that guy going, where would skateboarding be if it wasn't for Rodney Mullen?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like, without Rodney Mullen, there might not be skateboarding too. Like,
I 100% agree with that, right? Like,
because he invented the ollie.
Yeah,
without the ollie, you can't do anything.
without the ollie, where would skateboarding be? They would still be old school skateboard parks with the snake runs and stuff.
Yeah.
The ollie created the look of a skateboard park, like, you know, created people to be able to jump onto something. So, yeah, and just everything that the guy's done for. Sure, there's Tony Hawk. Everybody knows that name, but Rodney did so much for skateboarding. You know. So.
Well, yeah. Do you have anything you want to share with the audience?
You know, the humble thing about me is now I'm 61, and how much skateboarding has, you know, meant to me over the years, and the life-changing experiences that people have had from skateboarding. So, quick story is, before I rode for Powell, I would go to shopping malls, and this is where you could come in definitely. I went to shopping malls, and people paid me to do shows at shopping centers, and I would be the full show. So all you really need is a boombox and a mic and a roped off area. The person in the mall would go, hey, there's a skateboard show by Kevin Harris at 12 o'clock. Guess what? You got people on, put on the music. I did everything from the announcing to all the full demo, and, you know, 3, 4, 5 shows a day, which may be very consistent for the contest. Again, my point is freestylers can do it anywhere at any place. But I didn't know what I was creating, so I would go all spring and summer and tour shopping malls after shopping mall, like do 3 days here, drive out to the next town, do another 3 days. And then it wasn't until about 4 years ago I went on the road. Andy came on with me for a while, and I went back to some of these small towns in Canada, like I'm going to say, you know, Lethbridge, Alberta, which I was there in 1982 and did a shopping mall demo. So this is a couple of years ago now, so whatever, 35 years has gone by, or what the heck it's been. And you show up to these places, and guys would come up, and they look, you know, the skater looked tattooed and everything, 45 years old, 50 years old, and kind of double shaking my hand, and like tears would come to their eyes, and I was like, he goes, you changed my life. I was like, what do you mean I changed your life? You were here at the mall in, you know, 1982, and, you know, I was a troubled teenager, and I got a skateboard, and I got into the community, and thank you for that, because I'm successful because of skateboarding, and skateboarding changed my life, and if I didn't have skateboarding, I don't even think I'd be here on the planet. And a lot of stories like that, right? And I just think skateboarding is a very, very powerful type of thing. Like, you guys know it as a family who skates. You guys can go anywhere in the world, and you've never met these people before, but you meet another family or another skater, you're instantly connected. You might not speak the same language, but you're, hey, you need a place to stay, hey, do this, do that. So what other sport does that? It's skateboarding to me has been just amazing as far as the community and how and I think that message needs to get out there more. It needs to get out how skateboarding can change somebody's life.
That's cool. Well, thank you for taking the time and
thank you guys
doing this interview.
Thanks.
So that's it for this episode, and we'll see you guys at the next one. Later, guys.
Kevin Harris.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. That was awesome.
That was a really cool interview.
Awesome.